witness this history in Arizona and to really pay their final respects to Senator John McCain.
John Treeweiler, thanks so much. An American hero. I think that's the way a lot of people view him, just for his military service alone, just for his sacrifice in Vietnam. 5.5 years as a POW, tortured daily, sometimes every couple of hours, because of his refusal to leave until every serviceman could go with him.
I'm glad you mentioned that. We have heard from some of the other prisoners of war who were with him at that time, and they have said he was the person who kept us alive. He kept us motivated. He gave us that will to fight while we were there, and really the fight of their lives.
Joining us now, Mike O'Neill, who's a longtime political strategist here in the Valley, and also somebody who goes way back with John McCain. You tell an interesting story as well. About
It's a funny story. I was hardly an intimate, but I think my story goes back about as far as anybody's. 1980, I had done election night coverage on what was then the ABC affiliate, Channel 3 at the time. And after the election, the executive producer, a fellow by the name of Bill Best, said, "There's this guy I want you to meet. He was a former POW, and I think he has a future in Arizona politics." And John McCain brought me lunch and picked my brain. And I remember the question was the most piercing question he asked was interesting. He wanted to know who was more vulnerable to take on, Bruce Babbitt or Dennis DeConcini. And I've often wondered if my answer had anything to do with his choice, but he took the advice. I said neither. He ran for Congress, and the first race he had for Congress in 1980 in the primary really was the only seriously contested election he ever had. That was a surprise. It was a 6-candidate thing. He was not initially the favorite. After that, he virtually had no opposition.
People called him a carpetbagger when he first ran, because he wasn't originally from here.
But he had the best answer that anybody has ever given to that question. The only place I ever stayed longer than this was in Hanoi, and that was involuntary.
I think that was one of those moments where people really latched onto him and realized this guy is someone special.
Well, it certainly dispelled that issue permanently.
Quickly, right? Now, how can you argue with that, right?
Yeah.
But that moment that you met him, was there something that you just saw that was special?
You know, it's hard to say. You know, it's easy to read that in after the fact. I guess, you know, this is 40 years ago. And it was an interesting conversation, but I don't know that I didn't have that prescience to see that far into the future.
Bold, to say the least, though, to say that you were going to should I take on Bruce Babbitt or Dennis DeConcini, two of the towering figures in the history of Arizona politics?
Well, and that's why I think the advice that I gave was sound. They were both at the time very formidable. And, you know, there was an opening in the 1st Congressional District in what was then Tempe Mesa. He took it, waited his time 4 years after after 2 terms, Barry Goldwater retired.
Don't go anywhere, okay? Hang on. We want to check in with John Treeweiler right now.
Kaylee and Steve, good morning to you. This is what we're seeing right now. You can see it. Here is the hearse carrying Senator John McCain. You can see the DPS troopers have surrounded the hearse, and they are departing here from the funeral home momentarily. Here will come the first batch of motorcycle troopers, and then they will turn out here onto Bethany Home Road shortly. Traffic has been stopped in all directions. People have actually come out into the road to take pictures of this right now. So they are just waiting on final approval here. It looks like to come out here. Again, they are planning to head westbound on Bethany Home Road, but again, you're getting a live look here. This is the hearse carrying the body of our late Senator John McCain, surrounded by DPS troopers. They are going to escort this hearse and the senator down to the Arizona State Capitol, where his body will, of course, lie in state. So right now, they were looking like they were about to move. We anticipate them to start moving really any second right now. They're just waiting on some final clearance. Traffic has been stopped in all directions on Bethany Home. Again, we're expecting them to head westbound and then likely to I-17, where they will make their way to the Arizona State Capitol. Looks like right now they're just getting some final instruction. We have a lot of movement from Phoenix Police as well as other DPS troopers. We see them inching closer and closer, and here they go. Let's take a live look as it looks like they are about to depart, and we have some other vehicles of the motorcade that are about to follow here. Here they go. Let's watch this live.
Yeah, John, this is kind of a singular moment here. If you're familiar with a presidential motorcade, we've seen those here in the Valley in the past, and you've also seen the way that the remains of our brave servicemen and women who die in combat are protected and taken care of and watched over. You've got a lot of folks there, again, kind of lining the sidewalks and the streets with the flags, and DPS taking special care to go right along with the hearse there, the remains of Senator John McCain. Again, Bethany Home Road approaching 7th Avenue. They will make their way over theoretically to the 17 and make their way down south toward the state capitol. But this is the route. Again, if you're out and about right now, just make sure you avoid these areas. You know where this motorcade is set to go, down just across from Wesley Bolin Memorial Plaza, the state capitol complex grounds. And from there, they will have that procession end and begin all of the services. But you can see the folks kind of lining the streets there. And that's an appropriate way to pay homage to this Senator John McCain. Again, we have our crews spanned out all across the Valley, and let's kind of watch as we see the hearse. Central and Camelback is on the right-hand side. Again, we are watching this as police and DPS make their way, honoring the senator there. Again, it's kind of a logistical Herculean effort, isn't it? The way that they make their way across our valley streets, the grid, to slow things to a stop, at least for a moment. Typically for funerals, you can see those funeral processions make their way, and we've done stories about how they kind of make their way, and they have their rules of the road to make sure everybody stays safe. That is certainly what DPS is doing. They've been planning this for days, and they've been making these preparations, the special preparations, to make sure that Senator John McCain and his family make it there for those services at the state capitol. You can see the motorcycle officers, they are kind of the leading edge there as Senator McCain approaches, again, the next cross streets here, making his way toward the I-17. All right, let's get back out to John Treeweiler, who's on the ground just outside the mortuary. Tree, give us an idea of what you're seeing.
Well, Dan, very somber moments, obviously, as that hearse and the motorcade you just saw departed from here. As I mentioned earlier, this almost kind of has the makings of a parade, except very somber. Again, you can see now people have gathered around the memorial that was kind of out here, that was set up ever since the senator arrived at the funeral home on Saturday. You're also getting a live shot from Air 15 now of the motorcade as it makes its way towards the Arizona State Capitol. But it was a really kind of trying moment out here. People had gathered probably for about an hour or more or so just to come out here and just to see those kind of the first few seconds. In that small minute, we saw the senator's hearse come out of the funeral home and then leave. And now again, you see live some of those people. They are just kind of still taking in these final moments. They have gathered around that memorial to drop off a final card, some flowers, take some pictures, and really remember this moment in history. This area has kind of just cleared out, but we had people all along the road watching. There were people up on rooftops. Everyone had their phones out. I don't know if we have this video, but if we do, we can take it, of people actually planting flags on Central, and that actually happened this morning from Camelback all the way to Bethany Home Road. A group of old McCain staffers and volunteers and just neighbors from the neighborhood got together and actually just started planting out flags, as many as they could, along that route, because tomorrow that is the route that motorcade will make from the Arizona State Capitol back up to the church where the Phoenix funeral service for the senator will be. So again, just really touching moments out here as we continue to see everything has kind of died down out here right now. It's a little calmer, almost back to normal. The crowd was here. They waited for about an hour or more, some people, just to see the senator's hearse and that motorcade make their way out of the funeral home and start their procession to the Arizona State Capitol. Most of them will likely head there now to pay their final respects. Dan?
Yeah, John, the hearse just made its way there onto the freeway, turning southbound right now as we watch here on the screen. Consider the 10,000 people that they anticipate to be there at the state capitol, making their way through this afternoon. We've been talking about that here at the station, thinking it could be upwards of the tens of thousands, considering how many people have been lining the streets and going to catch their glimpse. Consider the generation, too, that John McCain represented here in Arizona. For people like me, we grew up here in the state, and that effectively is the only senator we've ever known from the early 80s, following who was also an Arizona icon, Barry Goldwater. So Goldwater followed by McCain, two names that really are kind of etched in stone in the collective consciousness here in the state of Arizona. So here we watch the procession. We've got DPS making sure that Senator John McCain's body can make its way down there to be honored properly in the rotunda as they go toward the state capitol. Let's go right now to the state capitol right now, where I believe we have the first person in line there to pay their respects to the late Senator John McCain.
Hi, yeah, Dan, we are here live at the state capitol, where we are standing by with Linda Gordon here. Linda, you are the first person in line to view the casket, to see the senator lying in state, the first member of the general public. Tell me, what time did you get here, and why did you want to be here bright and early?
Before 7, I got here, and I want to be here to pay my respects and to say thank you to Senator McCain for his love for the country, and that he represents to me what America is and what America should be.
Tell me a little bit about, feeling like you have a personal connection with the senator to some.
I met him once in Ramstein, Germany, and he was very kind, and he told me to visit his state, Arizona, when I get back. So I end up living here now. So, but I just love how he loved us and how much he gave his heart to us.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. We're going to go back down to Dan in the studio now. Dan.
Yeah, Melissa, thank you. We have a view here of Governor Doug Ducey and his wife, Angela. They are there standing, waiting to receive the McCain family. As governor, of course, this is one of his duties, and as a friend to Senator McCain. It's important to note, too, Governor Ducey has suspended all campaigning this week for the entire week out of respect of Senator John McCain. Told us here at ABC 15 he will not be resuming the campaign trail until Monday, until after the Sunday burial, where Senator John McCain will be laid to rest in Annapolis, Maryland. So again, the governor and his wife standing there outside the Capitol Rotunda here in Phoenix as Senator John McCain makes his way, his body makes its way, the hearse there on the left-hand side of your screen, toward downtown. Just an interesting note here, too. Senator McCain, of course, ran for the presidency a couple of times. He's part of what's called the silent generation. It was known the silent generation because during the communist era, the scare of the 1950s, this young generation that John McCain belonged to felt they could not speak out for fear of the repercussions. Senator John McCain, of course, kind of bucking that trend in the later part of his life. Anything but silent as he became a congressman and a senator and a presidential candidate and an advocate for so many things and a friend to many. We are now going back out to Steve and Kaylee there at the Capitol in Phoenix. Guys, go ahead.
And Dan, you know, when the motorcade actually arrives here right across the street from Wesley Boland Plaza, we're able to see the governor. In fact, he's just over my right shoulder here with his wife Angela. But lining the entire street, you're seeing both veterans and active duty military personnel, and then a procession of American flags. Really a testimony to McCain's military service and how highly thought of he was in all the branches of the military.
Absolutely. When they arrive, Cindy McCain, her family, they will be greeted by the Duceys, both our governor and his wife Angela, and then they will be escorted there into the rotunda where Senator John McCain will lie in state. Only one of 3 people to have ever been honored with this.
And accompanying Cindy McCain, of course, McCain's sons Jack and Jimmy as well. Both of them grew up here, went to school here in Arizona. They are native Arizonans by any measure. And then the proceedings will go inside for a ceremony inside the Capitol Rotunda, and we're expecting a number of people to say some words.
We want to bring in Mike O'Neill. He is a political strategist, but someone who goes very far back with Senator John McCain, long before he was a congressman, and that's what we were talking
Hardly
about.
Intimate, but yeah, this 1980. That's about that roughly coincident with his arrival here. Yeah.
But to watch his career and to have talked to him before, he talked to you about strategizing, so to speak. It must be remarkable to you to see its run here in the state of Arizona.
Yeah, one of the things I think about is at a time like this, the Goldwater funeral 20-some odd years ago, and he gave a eulogy. And if you reread that eulogy right now, these are, nobody will ever fill these shoes, etc. That eulogy could be given right now for John McCain. And we're tempted to say the same thing, but that Senate seat's only been held by 3 people, and they were all giants: Carl Hayden, Barry Goldwater, John McCain.
Wow!
You have to think of the relative impact of a state, and you take the other seat and you throw in Ernst McFarland, Majority Leader of the Senate. We have had extraordinary, and I didn't mention the Udalls, but that was the other house, extraordinary influence, and it's hard to know what the future will hold. I sure as heck didn't. I mean, you asked what my reaction was to that conversation in 1980. It was probably primarily, he sure is ambitious,
right? Especially in his early 40s, as he's looking, okay, how do I handle this?
Yeah.
You talked about the loss of influence, though. McCain chaired the Senate Armed Services Committee, which is one of the more important jobs in the Senate, but also was a deal maker and somebody, because he reached out across the aisle, because he was able to bring in members of the opposition party, considered really one of the most powerful men the Senate has ever seen.
And sometimes that incurred enmity within his own party. Because when you do that, particularly in the current environment, you take a risk. That's probably going to be something that's going to make it hard for somebody to replicate that. The current environment really doesn't reward bipartisanship. We say we want it, but our electeds have to go through a primary process where that is not a favorite thing to do.
But somebody who spent 30 years in the Senate as well, they build up seniority, they build the committee assignments, they build the means to be able to get legislation passed. A freshman senator is lost just trying to find the bathroom, as they often say. McCain often took those younger senators, like Jeff Flake, for instance, under his wing to kind of show them the ropes.
You hear a lot of those stories in the last few days of people that you'd say that wasn't the most, that wasn't the most expected. Just a personal anecdote. There was one night I was doing late night radio, and John McCain was the other guest, and we were in the studio afterwards alone, just chatting. And I remember a particular conversation turned to Ted Kennedy, who
Mike, I'm going to interrupt you here. The motorcade is just rounding the corner here now, right behind us, and we're going to watch this motorcade arrive with, again, carrying the casket of Senator John McCain, escorted by the DPS and a procession of vehicles. Cindy McCain also in that motorcade, along with John McCain's sons Jack and Jimmy. McCain will be greeted. Cindy McCain will be greeted by the governor and Angela Ducey, I should say, and then they will head inside the Capitol Rotunda for that ceremony. A number of people expected to speak in this as well, including Senator John Kyle, a 76-year-old former senator here who retired back in 2012. Of course, the governor expected to speak. A benediction then by Senator Jeff Flake as well. And a wreath by Congressman Jim Colby, who was a longtime friend, a former congressman from Tucson as well, as this motorcade arrives here. Lots of security, but you're also seeing a lot of people, civilians putting their hands on their hearts, many members of the military standing at attention, and no doubt when the casket is taken out and moved into the Capitol Rotunda, John McCain will get the military salute that he so deserves.
Absolutely. He will be retrieved by the Arizona National Guard casket team. In fact, that is going to be happening here in just a few moments. And we are right now looking at the McCain family approaching the hearse here as we speak, approaching Governor Doug Ducey and his wife, Angela.
Governor Ducey has been steadfast in supporting the family, and we should say this is a very carefully choreographed scene here, and one that really had to be put together within just a few days. It was only at about 4:30 in the afternoon on Saturday that McCain passed, but as we understand it, there had been discussions for some time about his funeral, his arrangements, exactly how he wanted to be remembered, and exactly what would take place as in terms of public access and that sort of thing.
We're witnessing an emotional moment. Not a lot of dry eyes from where I'm sitting. And that is a real tribute to what this man meant to this city and to this state, and what this family means to us.
Governor Ducey and wife Angela now facing a pathway that will be made here, and it's sort of craning our necks here to get a look as that flag draped casket is expected to be removed, full military honors, and then taken inside. You see Cindy McCain also standing right next to the governor. She has a naval escort, and we're just going to watch this. Take in. Civilians putting their hands over their heart. The governor has his hand over his heart. Members of the nation's military at salute. The tradition to honor a man who served his country for his entire adult life.
We are watching right now the body of Senator John McCain. It has arrived there at the state capitol as they make their way inside. You saw his wife Cindy, sons John and Jimmy right there, clad in their military best. Of course, they followed their father's footsteps into military service there. I believe we saw Meghan McCain there, other members of the McCain family making their way with Governor Doug Ducey and his wife Angela there on the state capitol grounds. Let's watch as they take the senator inside. Again, John McCain, born in 1936, shot down in 1967, a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 5.5 years. He was a living, breathing reminder of the war in Vietnam and the sacrifices that those families made, and the men, the tens of thousands who were lost in that conflict. Somber moment of respect. You see all of those there gathered at the Capitol grounds, watching as the senator and his family make their way there to pay their final respects to Senator John McCain. Important to note, he came to Arizona in the early 80s. He was already in his 40s, but safe to say he is a favorite adopted son of the state of Arizona. Somebody swelling with pride out there.
This ceremony expected to get underway at about 10 o'clock. We're running just a little bit behind, but at this point, that ceremony expected to take about an hour or so. I got a number of people offering their remarks here. Cindy McCain will then view the casket. And then at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, members of the public are going to be allowed in to make their way through the Capitol Rotunda and view the casket for themselves. We're told that they're expecting about 10,000 people here or so, but that's really a guess at this point. What they do say is that if people are in line by 8 o'clock, when this is supposed to conclude, then they will still be allowed to do so, and they're prepared actually to be here till about 11 o'clock tonight.
Which is so John McCain, right? I mean, that falls in line with who he was as a person, someone who made time for people. And I think that reflects, I would imagine, the wish that he made long before this ever happened. So as you saw Cindy McCain, she is making her way to the rotunda. She was escorted by her sons, Jack and Jimmy, and she's here at the Capitol Plaza. And Senator McCain will be placed there in the center of the Arizona Capitol Rotunda. It is happening as we speak, and be transferred to the ceremony to the Guard of Honor.
The invocation is going to be given by Father Edward Reese. He's a friend and the president of Ignatius College Preparatory in San Francisco. Also the president of Brophy College Prep in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where John and Cindy McCain's sons, Jack and Jimmy, who are escorting his casket today. That's where they attended school as well. So there's a lot of family connection here, a lot of people who knew him and knew him so well that they want to be able to reflect on his life. And again, this is just one tribute and one ceremony. Of course, there's going to be a private service tomorrow at North Phoenix Baptist Church. That's an invitation-only service, but that's also going to be something where a number of people, including Larry Fitzgerald and Senator Joe Biden, are going to speak. You know, what's interesting about some of these tributes and so forth is that you have people that were his political opponents, people that even beat him in a number of elections, and yet they were among his closest friends.
Right now we are seeing the family here, and Meghan McCain, who has, I think, done a very graceful job of sharing what has happened with their family over the past year, not just with our state, people who really care about John McCain and his family, but with the nation and the world. And I really believe her vulnerability has been a beautiful thing because in many ways I think it allowed us all to be emotional about it together with her.
We understand the ceremony is beginning. Let's listen in.
The country he served, and in all our hearts. Amen.
Please be seated. Governor Ducey, Governor Brewer, Governor Symington, Governor Napolitano, Representative Colby, Senator Schlatz, Senator Heller, Senator Flake, Cindy McCain, and all members of the McCain family and friends. John McCain believed in America. He believed in its people, its values, and its institutions. He said he came to this realization during his time as a POW in Vietnam. I fell in love with my country, he said, when I was a prisoner in someone else's. As a result, he dedicated his life to serve his country. When he saw challenges to its institutions or values, he fought to protect them. Thus, his efforts to rein in excess campaign expenditures and congressional earmarks, which he viewed as corrupting our values and institutions. And his insistence that battlefield detainees be treated in accordance with American law and values. In international affairs, his beliefs led Senator McCain to promote American principles of freedom and democracy for others. And in our military campaigns, to support our missions and our troops. John had a keen eye for American interests and could spot dangerous adversaries a mile away. He was among the first to advocate the surge in Iraq to regain the initiative in the war there. I've been with Senator McCain all around the world, and I will tell you that he had better instincts about how and when and where to assert American power than any other leader that I've known. He had been to more countries, knew more foreign leaders, and had a better grasp of history than any other American official, including our secretaries of state. One illustration that we're all familiar with was when others were looking into Vladimir Putin's eyes with an eye of understanding him and reaching accommodation within. John, of course, said, I looked into his eyes and I saw KGB While I believe John's greatest contribution was to American national security, we must comment a bit on Arizona interests as well. In a word, he loved his adopted state. He loved its beauty. He was committed to protecting our environment and our water and our forests. He worked throughout his career with our Native American citizens and with Arizona's veterans. He was a big champion of our many military installations. Some have disagreed with some of Senator McCain's votes on policy positions, but that should not diminish our gratitude for his service. And let's return to where I began, John's love for America and Arizona. He represented our values all over the world as Senator from Arizona, and America is stronger for his fierce defense of our values. We can be proud he was our senator. I consider it a great privilege to have served with John, and I will miss him as a friend and as a strong force for America in the world.
We've all seen the grainy video. A young man in his 30s emerges from behind the folding doors of a bus, plows forward with strength. His feet land on the ground, and he limps forward towards freedom. It's John McCain, and he's just spent 5 years as a prisoner of war, shot down, ejected from his plane, his right leg and both arms broken. He managed miraculously to save himself from drowning in the lake in which he landed, only to be captured by the North Vietnamese. No one expected John McCain to make it through the night, but as one of his fellow POWs put it, dying was not in his plan. Confined to solitude, tortured, this son and grandson of Navy admirals repeatedly refused release until every other American brother was released with him. Of all the speeches, interviews, and town hall meetings that have been played and replayed these days since John McCain has left us, it's this moment, more than any other, that can't help but stir a spirit of patriotism deep inside every American, bringing goosebumps to your arms and leaving the hair standing on the back of your neck. Because as you watch his release and learn his story, the senator's life, lessons, and wisdom take on a much more meaningful context. When John McCain called on us to serve a purpose greater than one's own self-interest, it wasn't a talking point designed to win the next election. It was how he had actually lived his life and continued to live his life. It's how he wanted us to live ours. His talk of country first wasn't simply a slogan on a yard sign. It was what John McCain had done and demonstrated over and over and over again in the Navy, through Vietnam, and all the way to his favorite battles on the floor of the United States Senate. In 2008, he electrified an arena in Minneapolis, proclaiming, "We're Americans, and we never give up. We never quit. We never hide from history. We make history." Those weren't the empty words of some politician grabbing the microphone and the spotlight for a few fleeting moments. Men had followed John McCain into battle, and we knew we could do the same. This man was trusted, and he was tested, qualities in increasingly short supply. We sometimes think that politics is life and death. But John McCain knew better because he had actually seen death and dying and tragedy. Make no mistake, he fought like hell for the causes he believed in. He plowed through election after election with the energy and focus of a warrior. But along the way, he did it with humor and humanity, and without compromising the principles he held so dear. I'd rather lose an election than lose a war. And we knew he was telling us the truth. In that way, John McCain was about more than politics. He brought us above politics. John is probably the only politician who could get us to set aside politics and come together as a state and a nation, as we have. Like many of us here in Arizona, John McCain was from somewhere else. But his spirit, service, and fierce independence ultimately helped shape the state with which he became synonymous. Almost exactly 20 years ago, John McCain delivered the eulogy at Barry Goldwater's funeral. That other great, legendary Arizonan who America holds dear in its heart. Where Barry Goldwater was born in Arizona, John McCain was Arizona's favorite adopted son. Nearly 45 years old when he moved to Arizona. This is the first place, he said, where he truly found a connection. Arizona has enchanted and claimed me, he wrote. I love it so much, and I'm so grateful for the privilege of representing the state and its people. But in reality, we were the ones who were privileged. Privileged to have John McCain fighting for us. Privileged to learn from him. Privileged that when he was back home, to run into him at the movies or at a ball game or at Starbucks. Just like he was any one of us. Privileged to proudly call him a fellow Arizonan. To the rest of the world, John McCain was Arizona. When all of us here traveled and told people we were from Arizona, people knew two big things about it. John McCain and the Grand Canyon. Imagining Arizona without John McCain is like picturing an Arizona without the Grand Canyon. It's just not natural. To the woman who brought John McCain to Arizona, Cindy, thank you. The hearts and prayers of not only Angela and I, but our entire state and nation are with you and your family at this moment. Always known for your elegance, grace, and compassion, and those qualities have been on full display this past year. You are a model for us and an inspiration. Arizona loves you, Cindy McCain. To the woman that brought John McCain into this world, Mrs. McCain, Roberta, 106 years young. You raised a remarkable son, and we are truly blessed that you are among us still. When we look to you, there's no doubt where John McCain inherited his determination, resilience, and tenacity. It was built into his DNA. You see it in John's children, who carry on his spirit of service. Doug, Andy, Megan, Sydney, Jack, Jimmy, and Bridget. May God bless you and keep all of you. Your father was very proud, and so is the state of Arizona. In May, Angela and I had the great honor of visiting with John and Cindy at their cabin. Before lunch, the senator broke the ice by sharing what was weighing on his mind most of all. Breaking into a signature grin, he said, "My biggest challenge is deciding whether or not to run for re-election in 2022. Dying, as has been observed 50 years earlier, was not in his plan. John McCain was a fighter, and he called on us to fight with him for American values, for the ideals and character of a free people, for justice and opportunity for all, for each other, and for this blessed and bountiful country. None of us were ready for this. We never would have been ready for this. But John McCain often said of Americans, we never surrender. So while we grieve today as a state and as a nation, John McCain's fight for America isn't over. It's a fight all Americans are obligated to continue on his behalf. And as we march forward with the courage and resolve he would have demanded, may we take comfort in knowing in that fight, John McCain will always have our back.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to have been gathered here today in the Arizona State Capitol to honor the life and memory of thy servant, John Sidney McCain. We are grateful for his life and for his sacrifice. Gathered in this spot, we are especially grateful that John made Arizona his home. More than 7 million of thy children have done likewise. And all of them, all of us, are grateful for John's able representation over these many years. We ask for thy Spirit to abide with us as we mourn his passing. We ask for an added measure of thy Spirit to be with John's sweet family, who have sacrificed so much for so long in sharing their loving husband and father with us for these many years. Send the Comforter that they might be reminded that joy cometh in the morning. Now as we go forward, let us remember thy humble servant with gladness and cheerfulness, to answer his call, to summon the better angels of our nature, to see and appreciate the humanity in our opponents, to more freely forgive so that we might be forgiven. Of this we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand. We have thanked God for the blessing that John McCain is and continues to be for us. Let us go now from this place in peace and comforting one another in the sure knowledge that one day we will join John in his home in heaven with his God.
sons Jack and Jimmy, as well as Meghan McCain. Jack McCain is actually known as John Jack Sidney McCain IV, and he has followed in much the same as his father's footsteps. He graduated from the Naval Academy in 2009. It was the only college he applied to. He is a Navy helicopter pilot as well. His son Jimmy is a Marine who has served tours in Iraq as well. And Jack has been somewhat outspoken on some social issues. A couple of years ago, he got involved with a controversy over an old Navy ad that featured an interracial couple, and he declared the people who were criticizing it ignorant racists. And Jack himself is involved in an interracial marriage, and they have a child together as well. And so perhaps one day we will see Jack McCain perhaps follow in his father's footsteps into politics, but for now he is certainly following a very similar path to his dad.
Or quite possibly his daughter Meghan. I mean, he leaves behind quite a legacy here. You may have seen, obviously, all of them emotional, but most noticeably his daughter Meghan. They were quite close and talked about it publicly a lot.
Yeah, nobody will forget that the final appearance on The View, which was McCain's final television appearance, and just how much it meant to be able to spend those days with him. Kind of a mixed bag too, because you knew the end was near, but at the same time you could take that time to spend some time with friends and family and really take in the state that you've called home for so long.
Well, it's like Governor Ducey said, we weren't ready. We would never have been ready. And I think that rings true really for all of us.
John Kyle making an interesting remark about Vladimir Putin in the midst of this too, noting that there were some who tried to understand Vladimir Putin, and quoting McCain saying, "When I look at Vladimir Putin, I see KGB." Mike O'Neill, sort of a subtle reference to our president, even in the midst of this.
What was so subtle about that?
perhaps not so subtle, but we all knew what he was talking about.
John Kyle knows his way around Washington. That's one of the reasons, if Governor Ducey goes in the direction of a senior statesman who will not seek re-election, that's why John Kyle is at the top of that list for an appointment.
Yeah, he was his party's whip. Most recently, he's been on Capitol Hill escorting Brett Kavanaugh around and making some introductions because he went there so long. John Kyle and Jeff Flake, maybe two of the junior senators who came along after McCain came in office, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but maybe two of the most straight shooters you'll ever meet when you talk to them.
Yeah, and John Kyle also widely respected in Washington. It wouldn't be like having a freshman senator. He knows his way. He wouldn't have to be shown the way to the bathroom.
And
for sure.
It's been a while since we've heard that voice. So when he walked up to the podium and he started speaking, that's the first thing I thought, oh, that familiar voice of Arizona.
A lot of people here in line as well, waiting to view the casket. That's not going to happen until about 2 o'clock this afternoon, but people have been lining up all morning, and Melissa Blasius is out there with some of them. And Melissa, I understand they had a chance to watch this ceremony on some screens out there. What's their reaction?
They absolutely did. In fact, there's a big screen out here as well as a big speaker, so they were able to watch the entire ceremony inside. Of course, when you saw Meghan McCain walk up to the casket and how emotional she is, there's everyone. Their faces reacted so much. I mean, this has been incredibly emotional for so many people in our state. I want to introduce you now to Erin Streeter. She's one of the people who are standing in line here, came here early this morning. Why did you want to be here for this moment?
This man deserves all the respect he gets. I'm trying so hard not to cry. He's one of the most, in my personal opinion, the most influential people in American politics today. I mean, he's done everything, and he puts his country, the state, he does everything first, and he's very selfless. It shows in his character, it shows in his voting record. It's so emotional, and that's why I'm here, because he deserves the respect. He put us first, and now it's time for us to put him first.
What sticks out to you most from the ceremony you just watched?
Probably Meghan McCain crying. It was so emotional to see her cry, because I could feel the pain and everything that she's gone through, and it's so brave. and everything she's doing is just incredible, and the entire family, allowing them for us to then, pour their hearts out, and then for us to let us pour our hearts out. It's incredible.
Thank you so much, Aaron. You know, they say that Meghan is John McCain in a skirt, and they did share just a special close bond that you could see every time they were together. From the time she was on the campaign trail, blogging about the campaign with him when he was running for president, until today, until that very emotional interview on The View several months ago. I wanted to give you an idea of how many people are here in line at this point. I don't know how far back you can see here, but there is now excess of 50 people in line patiently waiting, because I mean, we're talking about it's another 3 hours or so before they will get a chance to come in and pay their respects personally to John McCain, to stand in that rotunda under the copper dome and wish a great statesman and a great representative of Arizona goodbye. You can see here so many, you can see tears still in people's eyes as they hug each other and wipe the tears from their eyes, how much this man has meant to our state, how much his legacy will live on here in Arizona. I also wanted to say that they have prepared well for these people who are going to come, with benches for them to stand or to sit on, and water, so that everyone will be as cool and comfortable as possible as they wait to pay their final respects. Back to you guys.
Certainly, we've heard about that setup. They even have a covered place where people can actually wait in line, and that's been one of the big concerns. But the temperatures, once again, above 100 degrees here. They knew people would be lining up early and wanting to pay their respects, but they want to make sure everyone's okay, because it is pretty steamy out here.
Yes, well, right now 95 degrees, but the temperature climbing pretty quickly today, that's for sure. We have our Jennifer Martinez. She is standing by with some people up near Phoenix North Baptist Church, where tomorrow the funeral will be happening here in the Valley.
Jennifer?
Well, we're talking about the American spirit, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. This morning, volunteers began at 7 o'clock this morning. They started putting out and placing down these American flags. They say this was the least that they can do for their American hero, Senator John McCain. Now, they began this morning at about 7 o'clock, and there are hundreds of flags just lining this road near North Phoenix Baptist Church. Many volunteers sharing stories with me. Many of them worked closely with the late senator. They say today it's about grieving not only here in Arizona, but across the nation. And I just want to share a story of a man that I spoke with. His name is Charlie. He brought some flags here, about 100 flags, and he said to me, these were flags from 9/11 that I have kept, and this was the perfect time and the perfect moment for me to donate them and to give them to people. And this is exactly what he did. He gave them about 100 flags, and they started putting them and placing them on Camelback and Central Ave. And that just shows you what kind of people, what characters are out here to remember McCain. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer Martinez, along that route that will take place tomorrow at North Phoenix Baptist Church, where McCain will be remembered in an Arizona memorial service. And of course, there's going to be a memorial service in Washington, D.C. at the National Cathedral before McCain is interred at the Naval Academy Cemetery next to his good friend Admiral Larson, with whom he served in the Navy for many years. John Treeweiler, I know a lot of people came out to the mortuary as well this morning, just to give him that hero's send-off. It really affects people personally.
You're absolutely right, Stephen. You know, we are not far from where Jennifer is this morning. We are just a few blocks west of the church at the mortuary. And the people coming out, they really just wanted to be a part of this moment, and they wanted to give John McCain his final send-off and exactly what he deserved. I want to share with you some video of what it was like the moments before his hearse came out and that motorcade took off. We had people that were out here standing on top of the roofs of businesses. They had their phones out. They were documenting every minute of this. They were just really taking in the moment. People from their nearby homes, from area businesses, or just anyone who's out and about in the neighborhood, anyone who was just passing by a busy stretch of Bethany home. Everyone stopped and they took in this moment of Senator John McCain's hearse and being escorted to the Arizona State Capitol. It was really remarkable to see people holding American flag, people holding signs, people hugging one another. People really give John McCain a great sense from this neighborhood. That's the other thing. This mortuary in the neighborhood we are in off of 7th Avenue is not far from John McCain's longtime Phoenix home. So a lot of these people, the lady came up and said, you know, it's a sad day for Arizona, and that's something we 100% agree with. It is a sad day for Arizona. People in this neighborhood, John McCain was more than just their senator, as Doug Duce was just saying in the ceremony. He was really their neighbor. This person, John McCain, these people run into coffee shop, movies, at the neighborhood restaurant, and is back here in Arizona. To some of these people, especially in this part of Phoenix, he was much more than their senator. He was just their fellow. A live look and even Kaylee at the memorial. You can see here it's still the makeshift memorial that's been set up outside the mortuary. You can see the American flag, obviously. American flags, by the way, were put here by a long-time McCain staffer who actually had organized flags set up on Central Avenue, where we just Jennifer, and he went to the local, we're told, and played as many American flags as he could and played them out in this grass to make sure they were here, to honor his friend and his former boss, John McCain. Dan.
All right, John Treeweiler reporting for us. Thank you, John. Again, a week ahead, the first 5 to honor Senator John McCain, again being laid to rest on Sunday. But there are a lot of events leading up to that moment. We'll break down and tell you can honor the late senator.
It would have been his 82nd birthday, but on Wednesday, a different celebration will take place inside the Arizona Capitol Rotunda. Senator John will be only the third person to lie in state last 40 years. And starting at 2 p.m., you're invited to your respects.
As long as there are people in line, the Capitol will remain open.
Thursday morning, McCain's motorcade will leave and see Van Buren and Central en route to North Phoenix Baptist Church.
We anticipate there'll be people lining the streets, and it will be an opportunity for folks to say hi to them as he comes by.
Public memorial to celebrate his legacy begins at 10 a.m. and family and friends as national, state, and local officials have been invited to attend.
One person who has always been close to John shared a lot of his time as Vice President Jong-un, and he will give a tribute to John at the event.
Following the service, the motorcade will arrive at Sky Harbor.
There will be a transfer of names with a ceremony into the presidential airlift that's supplied by the military district of Washington. The send-off will be witnessed by active duty Arizona Air National.
The small private ceremony will mark the last time Senator reports in Arizona for our capital, where 3 days of events are planned to honor his extraordinary life.
Stephanie Hawkridge there speaking about how you can honor Senator John McCain today, leading up to the day he is laid to rest in Maryland. I want to talk a little bit, though. I got to speak with today who's Senator McCain years ago. He's the CEO of the Arizona Bankers Association, but in college, finishing up early undergrad education. He became an intern for Senator John McCain's early 1990s campaign, and he was part of what Senator McCain described as a team to help people. And the senator taught him what their mission really was. Listen.
Senator McCain would say to us, remember, when these folks call you, they're literally at the end of their rope. They've already done everything else that they can do. They need our help, and we got to help them. And so, and I never forgot that, and I always thought that was terrific.
Important lessons. He said also the interns learned that the senator loved to eat hot dogs, and they would go and fetch him whatever he wished to eat for lunch, but that on that level, on that basic level, he got to know the people that were working in his office, and he taught them important lifelong lessons. Let's get back out now to the state capitol. Steve and Kaylee, boy, just an emotional service there. We all saw it, and the folks at home saw it. The family members really taking this all in as those who loved him and worked with him delivered those beautiful words, tributes to Senator John McCain.
I think it says a lot about a person when you see their children and see how they've turned out and what they've grown up to be. And Meghan McCain certainly perhaps the most political of his children in terms of her activism. She's been actively involved in the Republican Party. She's been a political commentator as well. It's clear that he had a tremendous influence on her, and you have to wonder whether there will be some of his kids who carry on the family legacy.
Yes, no doubt. I certainly would not be surprised if we saw a couple of his children run for office, quite possibly. Let's bring in political analyst Mike O'Neill. I'm wondering if you're thinking that as well, as we've watched them grow up.
That's possible, though I wonder if the Navy, for the oldest son, if the Navy perhaps runs deeper in that family than even politics.
Yeah.
You know, John McCain got into politics basically because he couldn't continue in the Navy.
Right.
So it was a shift, and I don't think it was in a plan.
Yeah, he had a disability pension. Of course, his father and grandfather, both Navy admirals as well. Some years ago in 2009, when Jack McCain actually graduated from the Naval Academy, his mother noted that he didn't have nearly as many demerits as his father did.
That would have been a tough record to.
Would have been tough. He had a difficult disciplinary record. He graduated almost last in his class of
and
nearly
bragged about
900, and talked about that. He was the kind of guy who didn't necessarily, if the subject didn't interest him, he just didn't study it and wasn't particularly concerned about great grades. But at the same time, he read a lot of history and was certainly interested in military strategy and all of the things that went along with the military career.
Well, and being part of the McCain family and part of that legacy, it certainly seems that he's passed along, Senator John McCain passed along that personality to his children, that is for sure. That
you
sense
see
of
that
humor.
in Megan, to be sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Mike, we know that much of what we're seeing today and tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week was carefully planned in McCain's final months. Undoubtedly, there were discussions about who should take his place, and the governor has, right in the midst of an election season, also perhaps the most important decision that he will make is who's going to fill that senior senator seat. How much of McCain's influence plays into that? How much of his family's wishes is going to be there?
We will find that out. My guess is no. That when he said, well, I won't make that call until after the funeral, I think, first of all, what he's really saying is I will not make that call until after the primary.
Yeah.
And now, and you wait for the funeral. But the governor has total discretion on that, other than it has to be a Republican, not that he'd pick a non-Republican anyway. And my guess is that the family wishes subordinate to the governor's political concerns.
It'll be interesting. Certainly there's going to be a lot of party pressure as well as to who would replace him and how they would serve. You know, there are safe choices like a John Kyle or a John Shadegg who would take over and fill the seat capably for a couple of years, but they're not necessarily two people with future aspirations.
You know, if he were to pick Cindy McCain or Grant Woods,
or a Michael Bidwell,
then
whose
I'm
name
wrong.
was thrown
I'll
around.
pick those two, then I'm wrong.
Okay.
Because I think he'd be very happy with that, but I don't expect either to happen.
Meantime, it is quite warm out here.
Yes,
a lot of folks are
that would be
waiting
an understatement.
in line, and a lot of those folks are kind of suffering.
Absolutely. Temps right now in the mid to upper 90s. We want to check in with Iris Hermosillo. I'm sure we have people watching thinking that they would like to come down here and pay their final respects. We are expecting a very long line out here, and Iris, I'm imagining it's only going to get hotter.
Well, we've been heating up fast at the top of the hour in the low 90s, officially now 95 degrees. So just within the last 45 minutes, our temperature climbing another 3 degrees. So yes, it's going to get hotter as we head into the afternoon. And that sunshine, we're going to see plenty of it with no clouds really moving in to block any of that out. Temperatures across the valley already in the mid to upper 90s. So as you look at that hour by hour breakdown, if you are going to be heading out there soon, know that temperatures will keep warming into the mid to upper 90s here within the next couple of hours. And I really think we're going to start to see some of those triple digits around the valley close to lunchtime. As we approach the opening of the doors to the public around 2 o'clock, we're already into the hundreds in Phoenix, possibly a little hotter in other spots across the valley. But again, downtown Phoenix, abundant sunshine in the hundreds by 2. And that temperature today will end up peaking a little higher than we've been the last couple days, with a high today of 106. That high around 4 to 5 o'clock. So if you're still out there, or maybe you're heading out there after work, know that we we are still going to be pretty hot with above average temperatures through that 6 o'clock hour, even 104 by then. We likely won't be dropping out of those hundreds until about 9 p.m. So my best piece of advice, if you're going to be standing in line, sunblock is going to be key. Again, abundant sunshine, and maybe take some water with you too so that you're hydrating as you're waiting to get inside. Again, Dan, the good news is the humidity is low, so hopefully that will help. It's a dry heat today. No monsoon storms to worry about this afternoon, but it's that heat that you've got to be extra careful with for sure.
We'll take it, Iris. We'll certainly take it. We want as many people as possible to get out there to downtown Phoenix and check this truly singular moment out here in Arizona history. Senator McCain, known for his dedication to his country, but he was also a devoted family man. So as our nation says farewell to a hero, his wife and 7 children are remembering the life of a husband and father. ABC 15's Megan Thompson takes a look at John McCain, the family man.
To his colleagues, he was a patriot. To world leaders, an inspiration to millions and a man of great courage.
As always, I'm indebted to my wife, Cindy, and my 7 children.
But to his family, John McCain was first a husband and a father, married to first wife Carol in 1965. The couple shared 3 children, sons Douglas and Andrew. Their youngest daughter, Sydney, just a baby when McCain was shot down over Vietnam and held as a POW for nearly 6 years, something he spoke about with Charlie Gibson back in 2008.
Did it cost you your marriage?
I think so. But that's, again, my responsibility. I think we were separated for a long, long time. Carol is a wonderful and loving person and a wonderful parent. We just grew apart, but the responsibility is mine. I didn't work hard enough.
Then you met Cindy?
Yep.
Who pursued whom?
I think I pursued her. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Wed in 1980, the couple had 4 children, Megan, Jack, and Jimmy, both of whom, like their dad, served in the military. Jack, the U.S. Naval Academy, Jimmy, the U.S. Marines. The McCains adopted their youngest daughter, Bridget, in 1991 from Bangladesh.
I'm happy to note that we are adoptive parents, and it's enriched our lives, and we hope that will also encourage others to do the same.
I don't know if I've been a good father or not, but I do think we've tried very hard, mainly because of Cindy, to spend a lot of time with our children, and so far they've turned out pretty well, and I'm proud of them.
By his side during times of great triumph.
Privilege of accepting our party's nomination for President of the United States.
An agonizing defeat.
I had the honor of calling Senator Barack Obama to congratulate him. Please. To congratulate him on being elected the next president of the country that we both love.
Perhaps his greatest legacy, the family that will carry on the lessons he taught them. His daughter Megan sang on The View this past fall when her father appeared on the show to celebrate her birthday.
And I'm the luckiest person in the entire world. I mean, we are such a family that's filled with blessings, and we have such a bond and such a love, and I'm so grateful for that. A lot of people don't have that with their parents.
You know, the pleasures of family life can seem like a brief holiday from the crowded calendar of our nation's business, but I have treasured them all the more and can't imagine a life without the happiness that you've given me.
Of course, Meghan McCain, notable here on ABC as we see her every morning on The View, but Cindy McCain, his wife, considered that she has had a life of service following her husband, as he has spent a lot of time. Senators are busy people. She has spent so many countless hours and days and months serving those around the world in humanitarian efforts. So again, important to note that as well, a family serving those around the world. John Trewiler now live once again outside of the mortuary where Senator John McCain's body will leave to go to the Capitol.
Yeah, Dan, good afternoon or good morning, I should say to you. You know, it's been really kind of somber moments out here all morning long. It wasn't long ago, just probably about an hour ago, we saw Senator McCain's hearse in that motorcade depart out here. But what really struck us was the number of people that came out to witness this and to see this firsthand and to see it in person. People were out from neighboring businesses, their homes. People just wanted to give a final send-off to the senator. They wanted to have one last chance to see him go by. And this was someone that they knew not only as their senator, but in this neighborhood, they knew John McCain sometimes as their neighbor, because his longtime Phoenix home wasn't far from here. We spoke to one of those people that came out. His name was John, came all the way up from Glendale just to stand out here for about an hour and to watch this all happen. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Well, he's been doing his job for all people in Arizona and the United States for some 40 years. And he did it here for everybody. And like I said, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're an American, John McCain's on your side.
And we want to show you again live. Of course, you can see we've been showing you this all morning and really ever since Saturday when this kind of came about, this makeshift memorial. There's all kinds of stuff if you're able to get up close to it. I wish I was able to take you up close to it, Kaylee and Steve, so you could see some of the cards, some of the pictures people have left of them with the senator, flags, flowers, balloons, even children leaving signs. One of the signs there I saw earlier this week reads, Senator McCain, thank you for your service to the USA and for standing up for people. Love, Elliot. We don't know, of course, how old Elliot is, but you can just tell by the handwriting, probably about 8 years old or so. And there's some other pictures that children have drawn and all kinds of stuff that people have just left. Even an old McCain for Veterans campaign t-shirt is over there. So people have taken memories of the senator, they've laid it out, they've drawn signs, left cards sealed for the family, balloons, flowers, you name it. John McCain obviously meant a lot to the people of Arizona, but meant a lot to the people in this neighborhood where this funeral home is. Kaylee and Steve.
And it's wonderful to see that his legacy is being passed on from parents to our younger generations, because you know that these children are today and this week asking, who was John McCain? A lot of young people wondering, and that's our responsibility to pass on our history to our kids.
On the last few days, too, we've heard a lot of personal stories, people who had an encounter with John McCain, and he wasn't a senator, he wasn't somebody who held himself above everybody else. He talked to world leaders in the same way that he talked to the guy on the bar stool next to him.
Yes.
And it was that sort of demeanor, I think, that really endeared a lot of people to him. That's why so many people have turned out here today. And Melissa Blasius is standing by with some of those folks waiting in line for that final viewing. Melissa?
Hi guys, you talk about John McCain's touch with the regular Joes of the world. As I talked to his staffers, they explained how they had a hard time keeping him on schedule, because whenever he was in a room, he'd shake everybody's hand, he'd talk to people as long as they wanted to talk to him. He really had a connection with the people of Arizona. That's why so many people are turning out here at the Capitol today to pay their respects. We've got about 200 people or so in line at this point. I have some of them here. First of all, Brian, tell me why you felt it was so important to be here today.
I felt that it was important to come pay my respect to the senator. Senator John McCain was a great friend to the White Mountain Apache people and to all of Indian country. Senator John McCain was always instrumental in passing legislation on behalf of the White Mountain Apache tribe, one of them including a water rights program for $126 million to secure water for the Apache people for generations to come. It's sad because we lost a great man and a great friend to all of Indian country. I don't think there will ever be anybody like Senator John McCain that will fight for all people. And we are a solid blue Democratic district, except when John McCain was on the ballot. We always supported our senator. And even when 2008, when he ran against Obama, we supported our homeboy from Arizona, Senator John McCain. He will be missed.
Thank you. And tell me, what went through your mind as you saw the motorcade pull up with the hearse and the McCain family and the ceremony?
It was very sad. I've lost a few people in my life, but just really hit home. He's a great man. He's like a grandfather to us. He's a very great friend. I've always supported Senator McCain since I could vote, and it's kind of like setting in that we really won't have John McCain around no more, and it's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah, thank you so much,
right.
Brian. I want to. This is Randy here. He is an Air Force veteran, and tell me, you've had an occasion to meet Senator McCain multiple times.
Several times at book signings and at sporting events and everything. He always took time out to take pictures and say hi, shake hands. He was just a great man. We're going to be missed. it was such a sad day today to see that motorcade. And like I say, I served in Vietnam. I was there during the time he was actually a prisoner of war. So I've always liked McCain. He's so bipartisan. He tried to bring this country together. And he's going to be missed. We're missed a great, great man.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service as well, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Like I said, just hundreds of people starting to get in line now. You're Randy's. Who's Randy's wife? You're Randy's wife, dear. What is your name?
My name's Dora.
Dora, tell me too why you wanted to be out here. Did you work in the election
I worked
yesterday?
15 hours for the elections yesterday, and we were one of the ones that everything was running smoothly. So.
Why was it so important for you to now get up early this morning?
Well, I grew up with the Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and it just makes me proud to have somebody that is. He always served his people. He didn't, whether you were Democrat or Republicans, he always went with his people. So that's why. And with my husband serving 20 years, he's just a great man. And we made sure we were up here early today.
Thank you so much. And sometimes John McCain was criticized by his colleagues for being so bipartisan, but here you're hearing from the people that is what they truly appreciated about him, that he was willing to work to get what was needed to be done for our state and for our country. Ma'am, what is your name?
Diana.
Diana?
Yes.
And why did you come down today?
I had to come down. My dad's retired military. He was also in Vietnam when John McCain was there, and I heard the story from the time I was a young girl. I've always followed him, Republican, Democrat, it didn't matter. He is a man of honor, and we've lost a true moral compass, so I just had to be here.
Tell me what it's been like the last couple of hours out here.
When I first got here, it was pretty sad, but I have heard so many amazing stories and made friends in line. We're all here for our own reasons, but we're all here for the same. So he's just a wonderful person, and I would gladly wait hours and hours in this heat and do it again.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for joining me. Like I said, there are a couple hundred people in line. We expect thousands and thousands to take that time, to take that reflective moment, to go into our state capitol under the copper dome and pay their respects to Senator John McCain. If you do want to come down, they've said that they've got the hours for him to lie in state for public viewing between 2 and 8 o'clock. However, they say as long as there's people in line, they will allow the line to continue, so you will get an opportunity to be out here. It's a hot day, they've tried to make it as comfortable as they can for these folks. There are tents and benches lining the block here on Jefferson as people are waiting. They're passing out cold water in order to try to keep people hydrated and cool and as comfortable as possible. But these folks are literally going to wait in the 100-degree heat to say goodbye to a legend of Arizona, a political icon, a maverick, and someone who they feel very personally that was their senator. Guys, back to you.
All right, Melissa, thank you. So many people out there again hoping for that moment with Senator John McCain to pay their last respects. Thank you. Red and blue lights flashing, escorting the hearse there with the body of Senator John McCain. This along Bethany Home Road en route to the Phoenix Capitol. The motorcade escorting the late senator to lie in state in the Capitol Museum Rotunda. An incredibly moving moment, also honoring one of Arizona's favorite adopted sons, removing the casket from that hearse. Full guard, and of course the casket wrapped in the American flag. The McCain family there with Governor Doug Ducey following the casket into the Capitol building there in Phoenix. Cindy McCain being escorted into the rotunda by her sons. You can see the casket placed upon the state seal. Ditat Deus, it says, God enriches. Considering the rough Arizona terrain, a senator who sometimes was a bit rough around the edges, not afraid to speak his mind. Thanks for staying with us. It is just about 11 o'clock here. Following the memorial service, the senator's body and his family, of course, they will have a full few days leading up to the time he is laid to rest on Sunday. We will be bringing you live coverage of Senator McCain's memorial service Following that memorial service, the senator's body, his family, of course, they'll be traveling to Washington, D.C. Stephanie Hockridge picks up our team coverage explaining what is planned for all of you. So many folks out there I know want to pay their last respects. They want to consume all of this tribute to Senator John McCain. Here's what you can expect in the days to come.
Thursday night will mark the final time our beloved Senator John McCain will depart the state he represented for 6 terms in Congress. His family will escort his body on a flight from Phoenix Sky Harbor to Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, where the late senator will be received with a private ceremony by Armed Forces body bearers. On Friday morning, he will lie in state at the United States Capitol, where he spent nearly 4 decades serving our country. A private, formal ceremony will honor his life, and then the public is invited to pay their respects for the remainder of the day. On Saturday,
the family will gather at the Capitol in the morning and escort John along Pennsylvania Avenue to the Vietnam War Memorial, where Cindy and the family will make a quick stop and lay a wreath.
Then, at an invitation-only memorial service, his family will join congressional colleagues and international leaders to celebrate his national and global leadership.
Musical interlude requested specifically by Senator McCain to sing Danny Boy, and that will be done by the opera star Renee Fleming.
Former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama will deliver tributes to the 2-time presidential candidate at the National Cathedral before McCain is laid to rest at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis on Sunday. He'll be buried next to his Naval Academy classmate and lifelong friend, Admiral Chuck Larson, who died in 2014. But before he passed, Larson reserved 4 plots of land for him, Senator McCain, and their spouses, overlooking the river where their paths first crossed. Stephanie Hockridge, ABC 15, Arizona.
All right, there you have it. A whole lot of happenings this week as we lead up to that day on Sunday when he's laid to rest there at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. Let's get right out to Steve Irvin and Kaylee O'Kelly out there. What's kind of the feeling, guys, as it wraps up there at the state capitol grounds? I know a lot of people are going to be showing up in the near future in the afternoon hours to pay their last respects.
Yeah, I think a lot of people take this personally. I think a lot of people in this state in particular see John McCain as somebody who transcended politics. When you look at his approval, when you look at his popularity, just when you look at poll numbers, he is as popular, if not more popular, among Democrats and independents than he is in his own party. And that's not a testament necessarily to his politics as much as it is to his character.
And to who he was, absolutely, as a person, standing not only for what he believed in, but also for what Arizonans believed in, because he was so closely tied to our state, loved living here, loved everything about the place we call home.
We mentioned that he will be eulogized by the very people who he lost to in his greatest political aspiration, the office of the presidency. He'll be eulogized by Barack Obama. He'll be eulogized by Joe Biden as well as George W. Bush when we have some of these different memorial services. Mike O'Neill, is there anybody in history that you can think of who would be honored in that way and set the old scores aside and talk about his life?
Not with that level, I think, of deep affection, which I think he developed towards all of those people after the fact. I was able, almost uniquely, to put that behind him and to move on. And that's why I think those folks are the logical people to deliver the eulogy, because that's what he was about.
Joe Biden was particularly close with him, and we'll see him speak tomorrow. And he's a wonderful speaker and somebody who, I guess it was the way he put it, they weren't going to let their political differences get in the way of their friendship. That's rare nowadays.
Especially in this political climate.
You know, I started to tell this story before when the hearse pulled up, but it was a late night story. We were just alone, so nobody was
You and John McCain.
And like midnight in a radio station, everybody else had gone, and we're talking. And the subject went to Ted Kennedy. And at the time, he was expressing real concern for, at the time, Kennedy had been drinking heavily. He talked about finger shaking and the like. And he wasn't telling tales. What I saw absolutely was deep concern of a personal friend And then the ultimate irony, you know, he died 9 years to the day after Ted Kennedy of the same ailment. I'm convinced they had the same medication because with that ailment, there's one particular kind of medication. It doesn't keep you from dying, but it gives you one good year, which they both had, and one good year until the very end at decent health. And they both got a valedictory. You know, they got to stick around and say goodbye as they wanted to.
Talking about eulogizing, earlier, if you weren't with us, Mike O'Neill was talking about John McCain giving the eulogy for Barry Goldwater. And those words, you wonder if that may have helped to define some of the moves he made in Washington.
You could certainly see that became aspirational. That I think he was very much aware of the Goldwater legacy, and I want to try to fill those shoes. You know, which at the time, speaking those words, saying that probably would have seemed presumptuous. It doesn't seem presumptuous now.
Yeah, certainly when you look at Barry Goldwater, he was somebody who literally helped build the Arizona that we know today. Go back to Carl Hayden and Barry Goldwater and Central Arizona Project. We wouldn't have water in this town. Or
most of us wouldn't be here.
Right.
And most of us wouldn't be here without that kind of person. It gives you an idea of what a senator can do. When you look back on McCain's 30 years in the Senate, greatest legislative accomplishment?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Well, you know, the one that expressed his values was McCain-Feingold. Unfortunately, that got gutted by the court, but it still stands there as a testimony to a desire to clean up politics. And it may be back again in some form.
Clean up campaign finance, and one that he worked on with one of the most liberal members of the Senate, Russ Feingold.
And that's what made it work.
Yeah. It was funny, a couple of occasions that I'd share. One was when I interviewed McCain one time, I mentioned that I was from Wisconsin. The first thing he said was, Russ Feingold, good man. And of course, Feingold lost his seat to Ron Johnson a little bit earlier this year, but nonetheless, he recognized a person's character and often talked about how.
And that's really reaching across the aisle, not only in terms of partisanship, but ideology. Ted Kennedy, who was vilified by the Republican Party, he could still maintain a deep personal relationship, I'm convinced, even if he agreed with him on almost nothing.
It was like he could separate himself, his emotion, from what was happening with policy.
And I think that's something that's currently in very short supply. There's a tendency to vilify your opponents.
Yeah. Jennifer Martinez with our sister station KGUN out of Tucson has been watching the preparations for tomorrow's memorial service out there, and a lot of people wanting to take part as well. It's very personal to them as well, Jennifer.
It is very personable, and it's personal to everyone, right? And these hundreds of American flags are lining Central Avenue, just waiting for tomorrow. Many of them are previous staffers that worked for McCain and people that just wanted to lend a helping hand and just express their gratitude to McCain. And it really just goes to show, as I mentioned earlier, the American spirit. It really was shown out here on Central Ave when I got here about 7 o'clock this morning. And one of those people that actually came here, she is Kirsten Sinema. She says that she has suspended her campaigning in respects to the McCain family, but she wanted to stop by very quickly and share this story.
It's just an incredible tribute to not just an American hero, but Arizona's hero. We all have John McCain stories. They usually involve him yelling at you first and then making friends with you next.
I think that's what a lot of people can say, and a lot of staffers that I spoke to, they say they were interns. They say that McCain had a sense of humor, and that's actually what we've been hearing a lot from people who have met McCain and from politicians as well. They say that he was just an all-around great man, and they tell me that by sharing their stories, they are able to grieve not only with the nation, but with Arizonans as well. Back to you.
And talking about McCain's wit, we shared one of his favorite jokes the other night. He said, whenever I get good news, I sleep like a baby. I sleep for 2 hours, wake up crying, sleep for 2 hours, wake up crying.
Right.
I mean, he had that wonderful sense of humor that everybody remembers. Sometimes it was a salty sense of humor.
Oh, yes.
He certainly had some colorful language as well, but he was somebody that engaged with people and was quick to crack a joke and sort of lighten the mood.
Well, that's a naval heritage.
It must be, yeah, absolutely. But we've all three interviewed him more than one time, and it always struck me interesting, and especially the first time I interviewed him. But he could move from a topic like Syria, human rights, into one of these really funny jokes, and then he would talk with you about the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, or the Diamondbacks.
The shift was
the teams.
Phenomenally, just fascinating to watch how his mind would work.
You know, my grandfather, going way back, served in World War II and actually served stateside, and told me later in life that he had actually served in Admiral McCain's office in Washington. And my grandfather, for years after he learned that I moved to Arizona, insisted that I share that story with him or share that connection with him at some point, and I kept putting him off. He's a senator, Grandpa. He doesn't want to hear about you and all of that. And finally, in deference to my grandfather, I shared the story. And he actually listened and asked questions and wanted to know more about it. He took a personal interest in people,
Yes.
and I think that was one of those things that always endeared him to folks.
It was genuine. You felt like he was engaged the entire time. You never felt like his mind was wandering while he was visiting with you.
Lots of expressions from folks as well on social media. I know we've been checking through some of those, Dan.
Yeah, Steve and Kaylee, if you didn't see the way that Senator McCain could work a room, he spoke with the media a certain way, some jokes sometimes, but the way he talked to his constituents and could really just command the entire room wherever he was and field questions again easily, it was something to behold. I want to show you something that I found on social media just a few moments ago, actually. Take a look here. I tweeted this out. You see that circle I drew on this Google Maps location in Washington, D.C. for the Russell Senate Office Building? You see beneath it, it says the McCain Senate Office Building. Of course, we know Chuck Schumer, a leader on the Democratic side. This represents the bipartisanship that was John McCain. He suggested creating the McCain Senate Office Building. Well, this is the Russell Senate Office Building currently. I guess they move fast as far as Google Maps is concerned. This is outside the Russell Senate Office Building where Senator McCain had his office. Again, an honor perhaps by Google Maps a little bit early on this date that would have been Senator McCain's 82nd birthday. Just something to consider, that his experience and the senator's kind of ripple effect in the impact that he has on the world is reaching even the world of social media today. So check that out on Twitter as well. Let's get back out to John Treweiler, who is live outside the mortuary. John, again, what an experience this has been today. It's still ongoing.
Absolutely right, Dan. You know, it is still ongoing out here because the makeshift memorial out front of the mortuary is still in place. People still stopping by, even though most of the action is at the state capitol right now. But, you know, being in this neighborhood and being out here at the mortuary this entire morning, we've had the opportunity to run into a lot of different people. People from the neighborhood who maybe knew John McCain and wanted to pay their final respects. People from the neighborhood who didn't know him. People from all over Arizona, all over the valley that wanted to pay their final respects to Arizona, or excuse me, to John McCain. But also we've had the opportunity to meet some of his former staffers and people that worked for the late senator, and they've been out here taking in these moments as well and paying their final respects. One of those staffers we ran into was what Jennifer was just talking about a little bit ago, along Central Avenue, laying those flags all the way from Bethany home to Camelback. And I want to take a listen to Max here. Max Foss, he served with Senator John McCain, worked on his Senate staff, worked on his presidential campaigns, and actually started out as an intern for the senator. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I love John McCain, and he meant so much to me and my family personally, but also our country. And I just think it's another way to show our respect. It's actually helping because we have a lot of old McCain staffers here and people that we've seen throughout the years, and it's a big family, and it's you know, coming together. It's a part of the grieving process, and it's helping. And we're all sharing old stories about, you know, our own relationship with John McCain, and so it's helping. It's helping not only that way, but it's also our way. Everyone wants to do something and wants to, you know, put into action their love and respect for Senator McCain, and this is just one more way.
And Stephen, Kaylee, you get a live look here too at the mortuary. You see these little American flags that have been out here since Saturday. Those were actually planted in the ground by Max as well. He went to a nearby Walmart and actually bought them out of American flags and came back here and placed them all in the ground so that there would be something here. And then, of course, the community came together and just added to it outside of this funeral home. Pretty impressive just to hear from Max and the other former staffers, volunteers, and neighbors of this community this morning who have really come together. And again, those flags currently line Central Avenue, Kaylee and Steve, from Bethany home to Camelback. And of course, we know that is the route the motorcade will take tomorrow to go up to the church.
Yeah, community really pumped up by patriotism, remembering what John McCain meant to his country and his service to our country. And more important than politics these days. Certainly, we've seen a number of candidates saying they're going to suspend their campaigning, even though we've only got about 2 months until the November elections, and time is crucial. Many of those candidates, including the governor, who will face a strong challenge in and of himself, saying, I'm not going to do any campaigning this week. This week is about remembering our senior senator.
By the way, remembering our senior senator, I wanted to share this. If you would like to send flowers for John McCain, his website today saying, if so inclined, flowers may be sent to your local VA hospital. Thank you. Again, looking out for the veterans.
He always was. And,
yes.
As the Senate Armed Services Committee chairman, the Defense Appropriations Bill is named the McCain Bill because it is the one that funds the military, making sure they have what they need for their mission. John McCain's final message to America was one of reconciliation. He gave a speech on the Senate floor literally days after returning from Phoenix and getting brain surgery. He was out there with a scar on his face because he wanted to deliver this message.
What have we to lose by trying to work together to find those solutions? We're not getting done much apart. I don't think any of us feels very proud of our incapacity. Merely preventing your political opponents from doing what they want isn't the most inspiring work. There's greater satisfaction in respecting our differences, but not letting them prevent agreements that don't require abandonment of core principles, agreements made in good faith that help improve lives and protect the American people. The Senate is capable of that. We know that. We've seen it before. I've seen it happen many times, and the times when I was involved, even in a modest way, with working on a bipartisan response to a national problem or threat, are the proudest moments of my career and by far the most satisfying. This place is important. The work we do is important. Our strange rules and seemingly eccentric practices that slow our proceedings and insist on our cooperation are important. Our founders envisioned the Senate as the more deliberative, careful body that operates at a greater distance than the other body from the public passions of the hour. We are an important check on the powers of the executive. Our consent is necessary for the president to appoint jurists and powerful government officials, and in many respects, to conduct foreign policy. Whether or not we are of the same party, we are not the president's subordinates. We are his equal. As his responsibilities are onerous, many and powerful, so are ours. We play a vital role in shaping and directing the judiciary, the military, and the cabinet in planning and supporting foreign and domestic policies. Our success in meeting all these awesome constitutional obligations depends upon cooperation among ourselves. The success of the Senate is important to the continued success of America. This country, this big, boisterous, brawling, intemperate, restless, striving, daring, beautiful, bountiful, brave, good, and magnificent country needs us to help it thrive. That responsibility is more important than any of our personal interests or political affiliation. We are the servants of a great nation, a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. More people have lived free and prosperous lives here than in any other nation. We've acquired unprecedented wealth and power because of our governing principles and because our government defended those principles. America has made a greater contribution than any other nation to an international order that has liberated more people from tyranny and poverty than ever before in history. We have been the greatest example, the greatest supporter, and the greatest defender of that order. We aren't afraid. We don't covet other people's land and wealth. We don't hide behind walls. We breach them. We are a blessing to humanity. What greater cause could we hope to serve than helping keep America the strong, aspiring, inspirational beacon of liberty and defender of the dignity of all human beings and their right to freedom and equal justice? That is the cause that binds us and is so much more powerful and worthy than the small differences that divide us. What a great honor and extraordinary opportunity it is to serve in this body. It's a privilege to serve with all of you. I mean it. Many of you have reached out in the last few days with your concern and your prayers, and it means a lot to me. It really does. I've had so many people say such nice things about me recently that I think some of you must have me confused with someone else. I appreciate it, though, every word, even if much of it isn't deserved. I'll be here for a few days. I hope managing the floor debate on the defense authorization bill, which I'm proud to say is again a product of bipartisan cooperation and trust among the members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. After that, I'm going home for a while to treat my illness. I have every intention of returning here and giving many of you cause to regret all the nice things you said about me. And I hope to impress on you again that it is an honor to serve the American people in your company. Thank you, fellow senators. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
And with that, Senator John McCain left the Senate floor in Washington, D.C. for the final time just over a year ago. One of those speeches that will be pored over and studied for years to come, a speech about bipartisanship and about American pride. Let's talk about the public viewing that will run this afternoon from 2 o'clock until 8 this evening. They said anyone who is in line at 8 o'clock, they will leave it open. So it could be 8, 9, 10 o'clock. No matter how many people are there, they will get a chance to go through. Visitors, though, will have to go through a security screening. No firearms, no cameras or photography allowed. Only small bags allowed in, so heads up on that. Also, visitors to the state capitol are encouraged to park at the state fairgrounds. Then you can kind of be shuttled or bused over to the capitol area. For those going there, be sure to park in the authorized lots and spots. But again, you might not have a lot of options, and that's why they suggest perhaps taking that shuttle, maybe take an Uber like so many do these days as well. It's a hot day out there as well, Iris. Not a day to just stand around in the heat. But when you have to go honor the senator, it's something you have to do, a sacrifice you have to make. So maybe water is in order.
Absolutely. Once in a lifetime opportunity for sure to pay your respects. But if you are going to be heading out there, make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well, especially considering you may have to stand in line for a while. It's already 99 degrees, so we've climbed another 4 degrees just within the last 30 to 40 minutes. That's how quickly temperatures are climbing. Now, the bit of good news, the silver lining, is that humidity is low. We're down to 18% humidity, so at least it's a drier heat, and we're not dealing with the threat of monsoon storms today. Not much of a breeze to help either. Our winds below 10 miles an hour, and it's likely we'll keep them below 10 miles an hour through the afternoon into the evening. Now, by 1 o'clock, I think we're climbing a few more degrees, already into the triple digits at 103. As doors open at 2 o'clock, we're talking temperatures right around 104, 105 by 3 p.m. Today's high will peak right around 106 degrees, so a few degrees above average and just a little bit hotter than it's been the last couple of days. We're down to 101 by 7 p.m. and then by 8 we start to cool back into the 90s, and of course by then the sun will set, so that will help things out. Now the good news, because it is a dry heat, if you can find some shade, it'll feel a little bit better under there. And you know, that's where ABC 15's Melissa Blasius is this morning. She is with folks who have been in line all morning already. I know you guys are doing your best to stay cool as folks wait to pay their respects.
And Iris, it actually, under the tents here that they've set up for the public waiting in line, it is bearable at least. And people have been lining up for hours since before 8 a.m. They'll first be able to go in at 2 p.m. At this point, the line stretches nearly a block here near the state capitol here in Phoenix. We wanted to show you some of the people and talk to them about why they're out here with Senator John McCain to see him lying in state. This is John. And John, you had the pleasure of meeting Senator McCain, and you have a picture we want to show here. Explain what led up to this great hug.
Well, a couple years ago, I met Senator McCain out of our National Cemetery during Memorial Day, and I didn't know he was there, and we kind of came in late, and I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I told my wife, I want to meet him. You know, I said, he's a national hero. So I went up to him, and he greeted me right away, and I said, I'm a veteran of Vietnam. I said, I got wounded twice with 2 Purple Hearts. So he reached out and gave me the biggest bear hug, and he whispered in my ear, he said, why didn't you come get me? I said, if I didn't know it, I'd have been there in a heartbeat. So I'm here today to honor him, and I wrote a little paragraph that, if I can share it with you.
Yes, please do.
It says, you are truly an American hero, and I count it an honor to have met you and to have served at the same time in Vietnam. If ever anyone deserved the Medal of Honor, it should be you. You will always be a brother in arms to me. Thank you for your service with dignity, honor, and respect. May God greet you with open arms, and may you rest in peace. A brother in arms, John Ballinger.
John, Senator McCain has such a special place in so many hearts of Vietnam veterans. Tell me a little bit more about why, all these years later, you're still like, this is the guy that you'd follow and thank and pay your respects to.
I think most military personnel who have served our country know what it means to be an honorable person, and Senator McCain fits that bill perfect. He is a hero, he's a national hero, and we love and respect him here in Arizona. So I just want to do my due respects to him and his family.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. An emotional day for so many here. Guys, there are so many veterans. You can see them in their hats and some of them in other military garb waiting here to see Senator McCain, to see him lying in state here in Arizona. An emotional day for so many Arizonans. Steve and Kaylee.
Forever. His little
Thanks so much,
sister
Melissa.
was my
Talking
first
with some of the folks in line here at the state capitol, paying their respects. The doors are going to open about 2 o'clock this afternoon. We understand there's a couple of hundred people in line, and then they're going to stay open until at least 8 o'clock tonight. Anybody in line prior to 8 o'clock, though, they're going to continue to allow in to view that casket.
They are paying mind, though, to the weather here, and it feels like the heat has shut up even more so here the past couple of minutes. So be mindful of that if you're coming down. Stay well hydrated, but no, the temperatures are hot, and it feels that way.
Feels real warm.
Yes.
Got a couple of special guests with us today. Doug Cole, who was the communications director, started as an intern with Congressman McCain back in 1984, and our Attorney General Mark Brnovich, also a longtime McCain acquaintance. Doug, I'd like to ask you, we all saw that speech in 2008, John McCain's final presidential bid. And anybody that knew his aspirations knew it had to be one of the most painful nights of his political career. And yet he was conciliatory. He wanted to move the country forward. How much did it hurt when he lost, especially getting the nomination and going that far?
Well, it hurt a lot. It hurt a lot because he had worked so hard in 2000. And of course, the campaign got derailed in South Carolina after he had such great success in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. But where the country was with the collapse of the economy and all the pain America was going through, he knew that the country needed to come together, and that's why he gave that speech in 2008. Because that's what he was about. He was always country first. Everything else fell under that. And party affiliation sometimes even below many other things, because service and country first was who John McCain was, and that's what he will be remembered at. I mean, the ceremony we saw here just a few hours earlier with all these vets, and they're all lined up across the street over here, and all the honor guard, that is John McCain. all about country, all about service.
You know, I want to ask you, because you've been on the inside for all of these years, and especially during that election cycle, I remember, and I think many would agree with me, the day after that election, we got to see John McCain's personality again.
Sure.
And I remember looking at, it was one of the late night shows, and I thought, how come we didn't see that during the campaign? Why didn't we?
Well, we saw more of that in the 2000 campaign, because that was an insurgent campaign, and it, you know, no one said he would get anywhere, and nonetheless out of New Hampshire, and so he was John McCain on the bus. You know, every coffee shop, every VFW hall, every American Legion hall in the state of New Hampshire. I mean, he could have been the governor of New Hampshire at that point. But once we got to 2008, to that campaign, he was the presumptive nominee, and you know that brings a lot of other considerations with that. So he was more controlled and more handled, which he never liked. He never liked.
You could tell.
Yeah, and was never comfortable with. But that's how it rolls.
Well, he wasn't the presumptive nominee at one point.
No, he wasn't.
At one point,
he was, and then he
carrying
wasn't.
his own bags and flying on Southwest.
That's
I mean,
correct.
he was on his last legs, and then New Hampshire comes along, and he wins New Hampshire, and then goes on to the nomination.
Right.
General Brnovich, you were in that. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, and I was an intern as well, and Senator McCain used to joke that like anybody, it seems like that's in Arizona politics or working in the field at some point worked for him, and he kind of joke about that, but it's true though. He had such an impact on so many people's lives, and amazing man. And I was just telling someone inside that he's the kind of guy that if he had been born 100 years earlier, he would have been fighting the Civil War. If he'd been born 100 years earlier, he'd have been a Navy captain fighting the British. I mean, he was a warrior and he was a legend. But going back to the 2008 campaign, he was very often fond of telling a story that people shouldn't feel sorry for him after that loss, because after he was defeated, he slept like a baby. He went to bed. He'd wake up 2 hours and start crying, go back to bed, wake up every 2 hours and start crying again. That was always his joke. And he really had that ability to disarm people, especially his friends, with humor. And that's something I think in today's political world has been really lost.
Yes. If as a staff person, if he wasn't treating you with sarcasm and a little ridicule, then you have done something wrong with him, because he was mad at you. Because if he didn't say, be at an event and being one of his press people and handling him, he didn't say, "Oh, don't mind Doug here. He's just out on work release today, and doesn't he look good? But he's harmless."
Yeah.
I mean, that was John McCain's humor, and people go, "Are you really out on work release?" Or he'd say, "Oh, just out of Betty Ford or something."
Steve, and I just add kind of another story on that. It's not just on this personal level. He was able to connect with people, even sometimes, if you're an 18-year-old intern in his office. But then he had this macro appeal to people all over the world. And I would go to, go visit my family in the former Yugoslavia, and people would be like, "What's Senator McCain doing?" I mean, he was known throughout the world because he was such a champion of freedom. And one quick anecdote. In 2015, I was having dinner with him in D.C. We were talking about things, catching up, and there was, other senators, other cabinet people come by the table, and I think they thought I was a staffer. And Senator McCain always stopped and go, "No, I want you to say hello to the Attorney General of our state." And he was always respectful to anybody, regardless of their position. Yes. The wait staff loved him, and I've never in my life seen anything like this. We were getting up out of the restaurant, and all of a sudden, like a wave, people rise up and they start giving him a standing ovation, and then people want to take selfies with him. People just want to touch him. Wow. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I've never hung around Mick Jagger, but I'm guessing that that's what it must be like to hang around, the Rolling Stones.
Political equivalent of Elvis,
and walking through airports, which he lived in airports and lived on airplanes, he would always stop and allow people to take selfies, unless he was going to miss his flight. But he always, especially if they're veterans, and especially if they're wearing a uniform, he would seek them out and say, "Thank you for your service." This is John McCain.
In 2000, he started the Straight Talk Express, revived it in 2008. Can you think of another presidential candidate who would travel around on a bus with reporters right there next to him, fully accessible for hours at a time? I mean, as a communications director, you're just going crazy because you go, what is he going to say? Especially John McCain, what is he going to say on record? But that's the way he did business.
That's the way he did business, and we would never know what the story of the day would be. And that was more in 2000, and as he gained momentum in 2008, you get more handled. Yeah. But now we're seeing our current occupant of the White House, that's
all changed again.
But the other thing about Senator McCain, Steve, you're talking about that unplugged, I'd call it, which it's such a rare commodity in politics today, and it's one of the things that I can't stand. Like, I model myself in some ways after Senator McCain. I just try to tell it like it is, unscripted. The problem today, though, is everyone wants to have this gotcha moment. They try to do that to Senator McCain, and he was great about foiling it, and he had such a ability to do that. And the thing is, though, is I do think with Senator McCain, he knew what he believed. He was a person of convictions, and he had the attitude of like, this is what I believe, this is what I think, and if you don't like it, so be it. Let's argue about it. And he used to joke, and I know that he would say, a fight not joined is a fight not enjoyed. He didn't mind mixing it up and scrapping it up. And so when you're comfortable in your own skin, I guess when you face death in 5.5 years in a POW camp being tortured, the media doesn't scare you.
Well, the transparency, I think, protects you, and it seems like that's what he lived by. Stand by your beliefs, go with the honor that you live for and you stand for, and you'll be okay.
If you know what you believe, you don't have to worry about what you say and do, I think, in the long run.
But he was also very multidimensional. I remember in 2010 when John McCain, Jan Brewer, and John McCain, I was staffing Jan Brewer at the time, and John McCain, then communications director, Greg Buchanan, the four of us were on the state airplane barnstorming Arizona for both the primary and the general, because they both were on the same ballot. And we would get in the plane exhausting days, and McCain would start off on that scumbag Vladimir Putin. He's KGB. Don't let and he'd go off on Vladimir and go in this long diatribe about what's going on in Eastern Europe and Ukraine and everything else. And then, without stopping, he would just say, "Hey, Brooke, has Snooki from Jersey Shore texted me back yet?" I mean, that's just how he was.
It's always going. I mean, I heard a story from one of his staffers after the 2008 campaign that the night after giving that concession speech, or the day after giving that concession speech, he goes back to work and kept going. And the staffer was like, "I don't even know why I have an apartment, because he's just going and going and going." What drove him? I mean, what was it that just...
Life drove him. Life, and if he saw a wrong, he'd want to correct it, and he would drive a staff into the ground. I mean, but he would be fine. And it's like, how does a man of his, he was in his 70s in those days.
Yeah.
But you say that, and your faces both light up when you talk about your internships, and you talk about your ride alongside him and supporting him and defending him in the ways that you have. He may have driven you into the ground, but it sounds like you wouldn't have worked harder.
I'll do it again tomorrow. I'll do it again tomorrow.
He affected so many people's lives in the state. When I saw him in D.C. in this last December, we were talking. We had a very emotional moment. He was talking about how much he loved the state, and then I started to tear up, so I tried to cheer him up. "Oh, you still got your wit," and he tried to talk about something else, the Diamondbacks, whatever, and he was really truly like, Don't feel sorry for me. I've lived a great life," and he kind of had this imaginary actuary table. He's like, "Look," he goes, "this is where I'm at right now, according to the Mayo Clinic." And we're like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Well, according to the doctors, based on my age, my health history, my current prognosis, I shouldn't even be here. And so every day is a gift. No one should feel sorry for me." And he just, to the end, talked just about how much he loved Arizona. And I, as someone that grew up here, that passion he had for Arizona, it was the passion of somebody that had moved here and loved moving here and wanted to stay here. And it's something you just can't really describe. And also just that he affected so many people's lives without him knowing about it. When I was talking to him in December, he had this statue of the Guardian of Montenegro in his office. And Montenegro is a small country. Some people have heard about it now. The people there loved him because he was a big champion for freedom and all over the world, especially in Eastern Europe. And I took a picture of that and I sent it to my friends in Montenegro, and they were just so happy. Like, "Oh my gosh, Senator McCain has the Montenegrin Guardian in his office," and they just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And just that ability to affect people's lives positively that he had never even met is something that only a legend can do.
Yeah, I think I was reading through social media the other night, and there were messages from Latvia and Lithuania and the Ukraine, because he was so concerned about those former Soviet bloc countries.
But he also understood his adopted state and the traditions of this state. And when he first came into the House, Mo Udall became his mentor. It was that then chairman of the Interior and Insular Affairs Committee, and they maintained a very strong bond all until Mo's death. And once Mo could no longer serve after 1992, he resigned. John McCain would go visit him in the hospital. Mo was basically unconscious, and John McCain would sneak away from the Capitol,
get a bunch of articles from Arizona, current news, and he'd quietly sneak into the hospital and sit for hours and read to Mo. Because he knew the traditions and how important Mo Udall was to this state, and that was just the right thing to do. And that's a side people never saw John McCain.
Thanks for sharing some stories, gentlemen. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful.
We'll send it back to Dan in the studio.
Welcome back to our special coverage as we honor the late Senator John McCain. What an emotional morning it's been, filled with tributes and anecdotes and stories of a life well lived. Arizona's favorite adopted son on what would have been his 82nd birthday. It all started a little bit before 10 o'clock this morning as a procession transporting McCain's body made its way to the state capitol in Phoenix. And then the senator and his family were greeted at the Capitol by a crowd ready to pay their last respects. And among them, Governor Ducey and his wife. The senator's casket then led inside the Capitol Rotunda. While inside, an emotional moment, the entire McCain family standing in silence before an emotional ceremony featuring a number of speakers.
To the woman that brought John McCain into this world, Mrs. McCain, Roberta, 106 years young, you raised a remarkable son, and we are truly blessed that you are among us still. We are grateful for his life and for his sacrifice. Gathered in this spot, we are especially grateful that John made Arizona his home.
Jeff Flake there, the junior senator from our state, offering the prayer there, the benediction on that service. Our Stephanie Hockridge now with a look forward at who will have the honor to participate in tomorrow's memorial.
Plans are underway for a massive celebration in honor of our six-term Senator John McCain, a war hero and two-time presidential candidate. His office announced 15 pallbearers for Saturday's memorial service at the National Cathedral in Washington, which include former Vice President Joe Biden, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and actor Warren Beatty. They're just some of the, quote, friends listed in the schedule of events, which also mentions who's been asked to give a tribute speech. At the services in Phoenix, Governor Doug Ducey, Senator Jeff Flake, and former Senator John Kyle will be speaking. During Thursday's service at North Phoenix Baptist Church, Biden will offer a tribute. Students in the Brophy Chapel Ensemble will play, since it's the school some of McCain's children attended. His daughter Bridget will do a reading, and longtime friend Grant Woods has also been asked to present. At the memorial service at Washington National Cathedral, McCain's other daughter Megan will speak, along with former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. And Senator Lindsey Graham and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger are among those who will speak during Sunday's service at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. The mix of politicians from various political parties is proof that even in death, the late senator is living the words he spoke so eloquently.
I'd like to see us recover our sense that we are more alike than different. I'd like to see our politics begin to return to the purposes and practices that distinguish our history from the history of other nations.
Well, Senator McCain certainly loved his Arizona sports teams. You could see him at the Cardinals games, of course, at the Arizona Diamondbacks games and rooting on the Coyotes. Shane Doan and Luis Gonzalez are pallbearers. Larry Fitzgerald will read a tribute to the senator at tomorrow's funeral. Senator McCain's daughter Sydney told Larry Fitzgerald that McCain wanted him to say something at the funeral.
Truly one of the greatest honors of my life to be able to talk about somebody who has served his country so passionately and been so dedicated.
One legendary Arizonan to another there. I read that Senator McCain's most proud moments, sports moments in Arizona history was when the Arizona Wildcats won the 1997 National Championship and, of course, the 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks winning the World Series. You can just see him cheering on those teams in those highlights. Steve and Kaylee.
He counted people like Luis Gonzalez and Larry Fitzgerald as close friends, and they were among the first to offer their words of sympathy to the McCain family as well. People tell stories about how he would go out to the Cardinals practice, and you got all these superstars on the field, and they'd all stop what they were doing because Elvis had entered the building. You know, It was that sort of reverence for the guy. he really maintained great relationships, and he was a great fan of all of Arizona's sports teams.
Somehow, oddly enough, when I was working over at Channel 3, John McCain was there at the same time Larry Fitzgerald was there, and they were having this little powwow, and it was just really one of those moments. And we were sitting there in awe of how chummy they were, and they were just old buddies. It was really neat.
He had just tons of friends, tons of people that he befriended, even people from entirely different walks of life. Of course, just about, I want to say, an hour ago or so, the service with his body lying in state in the Capitol Rotunda wrapped up with all kinds of dignitaries in attendance, including members of the McCain family.
Let's take a look.
Of all the speeches, interviews, and town hall meetings that have been played and replayed these days since John McCain has left us, it's this moment, more than any other, that can't help but stir a spirit of patriotism deep inside every American, bringing goosebumps to your arms and leaving the hair standing on the back of your neck. He managed miraculously to save himself from drowning in the lake in which he landed, only to be captured by the North Vietnamese. No one expected John McCain to make it through the night, but as one of his fellow POWs put it, dying was not in his plan. To the woman that brought John McCain into this world, Mrs. McCain, Roberta, 106 years young, you raised a remarkable son, and we are truly blessed that you are among us still.
We are grateful for his life and for his sacrifice. Gathered in this spot, we are especially grateful that John made Arizona his home.
It was perhaps most important for John McCain not to connect with the people who had a title or the people who had the power, but the people that he would meet in everyday life. I read a story the other day about, it was written by a Democratic strategist who didn't know John McCain necessarily, and he told the story about how his wife, who had a newborn at the time, was trying to wrestle the shopping cart and the baby and all the groceries out to the car, and John McCain is passing her on the way into the grocery store, and it's raining. And he says, "Let me help you." And he walked all the groceries out to the car, even offered to load them into the car, and just did it because it was the decent thing to do at the time.
It was the right thing to do, yes.
And
Boy.
he's remembered for those little things all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And those are the stories, again, we continue to hear about from all walks of life out here. Our governor went on to say during the memorial service today that this is one of those times that you just can't help but feel patriotic.
Absolutely. A lot of those folks that John McCain touched throughout his life and political career gathered at the mortuary and gathered along the procession route to see his body lie in state here at the Capitol. John Treeweiler has been talking to some of those folks. John?
Yeah, Stephen, Kaylee, you know, it was really a remarkable morning, something really special to see that out here at the mortuary. This has really been kind of the focal point of all of the energy ever since John McCain was brought here on Saturday, and then, of course, was escorted away from here to the Arizona State Capitol just about 9:30 this morning. But it really almost had that sense and that environment of we were waiting for a parade to start, although this, of course, a much more somber occasion. There were people standing on rooftops. People had come out to the sidewalks. People had set up lawn chairs. Folks holding American flags. Everyone had their cameras out, their phones out, waiting to just catch a glimpse of Senator John McCain one last time, maybe for them, as he was escorted away by Arizona DPS. It was really something special to see, and I'm sure special for a lot of these people to take away with them from this neighborhood, from these area businesses, and to just see it. And it was this culmination of everyone waiting for this one moment, and then it happened, and then, of course, it was away. But out here at the scene, at the mortuary, it still remains a place where people this morning are coming to, and they are paying their final respects. You can take a live look here behind us and see the makeshift kind of memorial that's set up here ever since Saturday. American flags, balloons, flowers, candles, candles, old campaign memorabilia, people leaving pictures of themselves with the senator, people leaving cards for the McCain family, and people writing signs, even children writing messages to the senator. So really an entire community coming together to say goodbye to their senator, Senator John McCain. Stephen Cayley.
And John, you're right there in his neighborhood, his stomping grounds.
Yeah, that house on Central Avenue that he had in Phoenix for so many years. You know, when we talk to folks like Doug Cole or Mark Brnovich, they go back 30 years with John McCain. That's the kind of loyalty that he really inspired. They enjoyed working for him. They worked on repeated campaigns with him, and they developed a name for themselves as well.
Yes, the McCain Mafia.
You're in the McCain organization, and you're in the McCain organization. It's kind of it's a lifetime association.
If the McCain Mafia had an induction, it could have sounded more like an insult.
My running name has always been Scumbag.
This kind of teasing a compliment, meaning the boss liked you.
I'm good to see you're out of rehab today, or are you on work release today?
Cindy and I voted.
John McCain's sarcastic wit sometimes got him in trouble. It also could help him make a point. In 1982, when he was criticized for running for Congress, so soon after moving to Arizona, he fired back like this.
Now that I think about it, the longest place I ever stayed my whole life was as a prisoner of war in North Vietnam. So no, sir, I'm not a carpetbagger, I'm an American. And that was the end of that conversation.
POW Congressman, then Senator, McCain became one of the best-known Americans of our time. Kurt Davis remembers the crush of admirers at a banquet. McCain didn't even have a chance to eat his dinner.
They wanted just one picture or just one word. And I remember my wife leaned over to him and said, "Does that ever drive you crazy?" And his answer to her, and I will never forget it, is no. And you would regret if when the day comes when they no longer want to take your picture.
There were moments of quiet kindness, especially when a mentor, former Democratic Congressman Mo Udall, was hospitalized, dying.
And Senator McCain would sneak away at least once or twice a month and go visit Mo and take newspaper articles from Arizona and other interesting things. And Mo was basically unconscious in those days, and he would sit and read to him.
The defense authorization bill.
In the footsteps of Mo Udall and Barry Goldwater, John McCain also aspired for more.
First time I talked to him about running for president, I'll never forget. I remember my reaction is kind of like, why? Why would you do that? But he has a career of public service. His entire life is defined by that.
The campaign team believed McCain could win in 2008, but just weeks before the election, the stock market collapsed.
All of us that supported John McCain, I think, in one way or another knew that this is a seminal moment.
The American people have spoken.
If he had become president, he would have served our nation well.
Always put country first, and he always did what he thought was the right thing to do, whether it was politically popular or not.
In a way, John McCain is the godfather of modern Arizona politics, and through the people he worked with and mentored, like those proud to call themselves the McCain Mafia, his influence will continue for generations. In Phoenix, Melissa Blasius, ABC 15, Arizona.
Melissa, thank you so much, and we are just beginning to go through some of the ceremonies and the honors that will be bestowed on John McCain here in Arizona, and that is before he moves on to Washington, D.C.
Tomorrow will no doubt be an emotional day at this funeral that's happening at North Phoenix Baptist Church. We're going to see Larry Fitzgerald there. Joe Biden will be there. Jennifer Martinez is there right now talking about what is underway to prepare for this.
Well, this morning, while there were just a handful of volunteers here on Central Avenue, they placed hundreds of American flags down the road where the motorcade will pass by. And they say that this is the least that they can do for their American hero. And while they placed these flags down, they told me stories. They shared how McCain had a sense of humor. It's basically what we've been talking about all morning, and how they cared for him so much. And they said that this was a way that they can just come together, share gratitude, and share those stories and grieve the process, not only here in Arizona, but really just across the nation. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and we are going to continue to remember John McCain, I think, in many different ways. We've heard a lot of people tell stories about the man that he was, and I think that's the way he wanted to be remembered. There's a quote about him saying that the one thing in life that will make you happy or unhappy is your character. It's something that you decide on. Nobody can give it to you, and if you're a person of good character, nobody can take it away.
And you see, obviously, the love his family had for him, and with the emotions that we saw earlier today, not just from Megan, but really from the entire family. And we see people out here, we've seen the governor walk by, Kirk Adams, we've had a lot of very high-profile people from here in Arizona, all of them resonating the same thing, that he was a special guy.
Mm-hmm. He was the kind of person that really transcended politics, and that's really what he wanted to do. It was less about politics to him than it was about getting things done. There's a quote about him saying that you reach out across the aisle, and it's not about winning, it's about accomplishing something. And sometimes that's 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's what you accomplish, and it's what you do through compromise. And we've talked to a lot of people in the last couple of days here who wonder if that spirit is really lost in politics these days, especially because of the partisanship that we see. And McCain said it himself, when you have that sort of partisanship, we're not getting anything done.
But you know, having said that, I think it's important to say this: it doesn't have to be lost.
Yeah.
And we are seeing a lot of people unify over this, and hopefully there will be some sort of idealism that will be left in his legacy.
Yeah, certainly that was his hope, was to inspire younger generations, and that's why he mentored so many young politicians. That's why you run into so many people like Attorney General Brnovich, who was inspired to serve in public service because of the character that he really saw with John McCain. Dan, we're going to send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Stephen Cayley, thank you. We have a live view right now inside the Capitol Rotunda there as people pay their final respects. These are perhaps former staffers, associates of Senator John McCain as they walk past one by one, some of them crossing themselves, others saluting, others their hands on their hearts, paying this respect to Senator John McCain over the seal of the great state of Arizona. Ditat Deus, it says in Latin, meaning God enriches. The senator certainly embodying that. The state of Arizona, an unforgiving climate, but the senator enriched certainly by his time here in our state. A public viewing runs from 2 o'clock this afternoon to 8 this evening. If you are in line, visitors will be able to get through and do just what you were seeing the folks do here. If you were in line at 8 o'clock, they said it's not a hard time where they will close up shop. You will actually have time to pay your last respects there at the state capitol. There is a security screening you have to go through. Do not take firearms, do not take cameras, no photography allowed. Only small bags will be allowed in as well. I want to show you this if I can. One of the tweets from Governor Ducey, actually one of his quotes. He said, "Imagining Arizona without John McCain is like picturing the Arizona without the Grand Canyon. It's just not natural." Again, such a fixture in our state, Senator John McCain, as those go through. Vice President Joe Biden actually tweeted out, kind of piggybacking on what DPS said, that along the 17 and Camelback and Central tomorrow, the public is invited to go out and line the streets with that procession and pay their last respects. And so the Vice President saying that's a great way to honor Senator John McCain. Let's get back out one more time. Stephen Cayley, you have Governor Ducey sitting there.
Exactly.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes left in our broadcast here, but Governor, we thought we'd let you give the last word to about the legacy of John McCain, what he will mean for the future of Arizona.
Well, words can't really put the legacy, can't do it justice. I think you see the state of Arizona, you see tens of thousands of people coming out to honor an American hero, somebody that was as synonymous with Arizona as the Grand Canyon, and that's about the void that John McCain is going to leave in our state. So I think the outpouring, not only from the citizens of our state, I want you to know that everybody inside state government wanted to be a part of this memorial. They wanted to help. The people that weren't involved were like, did I do something wrong? And I said, no, we have a state government to run as well.
Yeah.
But they wanted to come in early or stay late. And I think we're going to pay tribute to this man for a very long time.
And all the people that we've talked to out here, you included just moments ago, saying you just felt lucky to know him and to be part of what he was all about.
He had a spirit and a zest for life. And of course, politics were involved with it. But I think when you look at his family, you see this wasn't a political family. This was a military family first, committed to service to the nation. And that's what John McCain took into public life.
Governor, we wish you the best in trying to find the right person to fill his shoes. We know that's on the horizon in the next couple of weeks, and I know that this week is about John McCain, and you're to be lauded for setting politics aside as well for this week and transcending politics, and I think a way that John McCain would really want.
Absolutely. We are sorry for your loss. We know how close you and Angela were to him.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Governor. That's going to wrap up our coverage here from the state capitol. Once again, public viewing begins at 2 o'clock. That's going to run till about 8 o'clock tonight, and hundreds of people expected to file past that casket today. Dan?
Again, much more coverage right here on ABC 15 as we are wrapping up our on-air coverage here. There's a digital section on abc15.com as well as the digital app. Download it for free for your phone right now. Kind of a timeline of the life of Senator John McCain as we honor him this the first of 5 days as he will make his way back to our nation's capital and then on to Annapolis, Maryland. The senator will be buried there at the Naval Academy alongside one of his close friends and someone who spent a lot of time with the senator during his time in the military. Again, DPS saying on those marquee signs today, country first, rest in peace, Senator McCain. A great way to pay tribute to the late senator as he lies in repose there under the Capitol Museum Rotunda in Phoenix.